everyone, my name's Lucy and I'm a children's occupational therapist. Kirsty has asked me to do a quick post for Mental Health Awareness Week, looking at our emotions and our ability to regulate our emotions, which is really important. I work with a lot of children using something called the Zones of Regulation, which is a programme to help children and young people and adults even to look at their different emotional levels during the course of the day, and to be able to develop strategies to be able to support them in returning to what we call the just right or the green zone. So the Zones of Regulation is a programme used a lot by occupational therapists, but also with speech and language therapists, teachers and other practitioners, looking at how we distinguish and talk about our different emotions. So it's got 4 different zones. The blue zone, where you might be feeling tired or low or bored or poorly. The green zone, which is the okay zone, where you're calm and you're relaxed and you're alert and you're ready to learn. The yellow zone, where you might be feeling a little bit wobbly and maybe a little bit anxious, a bit frustrated, a bit worried about something. And then the red zone, where you are very angry, very upset, very frightened or scared. And it's around teaching children that actually it's okay to be feeling, we all have different emotions and we all feel differently, and recognising when we're moving between the zones. So we might be starting off in the blue zone first thing in the morning, for example, when we're tired and we need a little bit of something to get us going, and then we might stay a lot of the day in the green zone, hopefully, but we all fluctuate into those yellow and red zones, and that's absolutely fine, knowing that all emotions are equal and it's okay to be in each of those different zones. And it's then about how we develop strategies and our own self strategies to help us return back to green when we might be feeling anxious or worried. So it's really thinking about, what do we do to help regulate ourselves? How do we, what are our own coping strategies? For adults, it might be things like reading a book or going for a walk or doing some mindfulness. For children, what are the strategies that they're using? What are their feel-good strategies? It might be listening to a favourite band, watching a television programme, going for a walk, going for a bike ride, doing some movement in different ways. And it's thinking about what makes us feel good. And the Zones of Regulation is linked a lot to our senses and sensory processing. So we've got 8 senses, and we all process sensory information very differently, and the information comes in through our senses and it is processed within our brain. And sometimes how we process this information, sometimes it doesn't work particularly well. So what happens is that we might feel very sensitive to certain sensory stimuli, and that can then affect our emotional state. So for example, if you're an individual that doesn't like loud noises, and you're around in a busy classroom environment, for example, or a busy shop, actually you can get quite overwhelmed and feel quite anxious and worried, and that sensory stimuli then has a massive impact on our emotional state. So sensory processing is really important, so that's something that we also use within the Zones of Regulation as well. We tie that in with sensory processing. And also sensory processing, the different strategies are embedded within kind of looking at what input they give from our different senses. So it might mean that we like to move, and that would, big movement, running, jumping, crashing, carrying heavy items, that might make us feel back in the green zone again. Things like having a cuddle, having a massage, having a bath, those what we call deep pressure tactile activities, so they give lots of input to our touch senses, they might get us back down into the green zone again. So the Zones of Regulation and sensory processing work really closely together to be able to support our own emotional regulation. So really with the Zones of Regulation and how that ties in within our mental health, it's the recognition that actually that every emotion is equal, and it's okay to feel different emotions. It's what you do when you're in that different state that's important. It's about how we can get ourselves back down to that green zone, different strategies that we've got, and there are so many different ideas and coping strategies out there that you can try. Things like, you know, your typical yoga, deep breathing, calming things, but also movement and exercise. There's so much research around movement and exercise and the link to the benefits that has on our mental health. So it's thinking about, when you're working with your child, to maybe think about emotions and different levels. It's thinking about kind of classifying them into different states, and basically the message is that every emotion is equal, and it's okay to feel angry and it's okay to feel upset, but it's what you do to get yourself back down into that calm state that's really important. So that was just a little snippet from me about the zones of regulation. Hope everybody's well and looking after their own mental health, especially in these crazy times that we're in at the moment. As I say, I'm Lucy Bates. I'm around on Facebook. I'm Lucy Bates Children's OT. If anybody wants to find out any more about sensory processing or the zones of regulation. Thank you to Kirsty for letting me have a chat on her channel.